One more?
Is he here now? Did that work? Okay.
Well, we'll just get started. One more song before we pull.
You hey you ho, you hey you ho, oh hey hey ha, you hey you ho, you hey you ho, you hey you ho, oh hey hey ha, you hey you ho, so you go, so you go. An outside song and also a coming in song in case there were people who weren't sure where we were gathering. And an outside song was traditionally used to announce to people, to your guests, or to your host, depending on who you're dancing for, that you're ready to start and that you're here. I thought it would be appropriate to do the songs from what's called our Gyeokwan series, which is our imitation of the Aleuts, and those songs were actually obtained from the Aleuts, from a Kiks-Adi man who went to live among the Aleuts, and because of their history and the way in which it was tied up with the Russians, it seemed appropriate in terms of gathering and letting people know where we are today, and to find us, to use those songs in their honor, as they also didn't have a choice in their encounters with the Russians.
Okay.
So as we're gathering today, I think one of the things that really comes to mind as Sitka is gearing up for its big celebration of this Sesquicentennial of the transfer of the territory of Alaska from the Russians to the Americans, is that growing up in Sitka, it's a huge part of the history that's told, Russian America. And it's one thing as a Tlingit person and as a Kiksadi person, that's been difficult to come to terms with throughout our lifetime, because it's emphasized so heavily, it's capitalized on so heavily, and even though it was a significant time in our history in terms of the things that happened to us as a result of that contact, it's roughly 80 years of our history compared to millennia of our history here in this location. And so as we look at the town gearing up for this big celebration, it's always a big celebration in Sitka every year. It's the only place that really celebrates Alaska Day, because of course the transfer happened here. It's a difficult time, because I can see why the people who received this vast land as a result of this treaty would celebrate this day. What's hard is that so many people don't understand why there are those of us who don't celebrate this day, because it marks the loss of our land and the selling of it by someone who never owned it to begin with, to someone who was buying stolen property. And so it's something we go through every year, and it's something we've been trying to come to terms with, in particular this year with the big celebration surrounding Seward's Day in March and then Alaska Day this week. I will say that the people who've been in charge have been trying to be as inclusive as possible, the people who've been in charge of this celebration. And it's been difficult to approach it without mixed feelings. We've been asked to take part in some of these two holidays that they were making the big to-do about. I have to say that we're asked to send a few of us up for the transfer ceremony that they reenact every year. And I haven't responded yet to that request or invitation. As a resident of Sitka for 44 years now, I will say that I've actually never attended the transfer ceremony, and it's not necessarily out of bitterness, but it's out of principle. We weren't invited to the first one, and so I've never attended the commemorations that have taken place since then, because why would I celebrate it? And so there's been a lot of healing that's happened. There are definitely aspects of being an American citizen as opposed to a Russian citizen that can be celebrated. But the overarching principle is that October 18th, 1867 marks the day that we lost our land. And so we're here today to mark that moment. And we're gathering here today where we were allowed to be on that day in 1867, which was not up there, not taking part because we were not to be a part of it.
And the original name is New Tlein, and there were 3 clan houses, Kiksadi clan houses there. And we have been in this area for 10,000 years, and it's been 150 years that it's been known as Castle Hill. So we especially wanted to be here as Kiksadi, where our original clan houses were, and where now they commemorate every year the taking of our land. And so many of us here, you'll see our point house, Shakahit, also known as Kakahit, as well as the Tanahit and the playhouse, Sahit, and as well as our relatives, child of Kiksadi, Siknachadi, Ganochish for being here. And so with that, we can, does anybody have anything that you would like to add?
I wanted to ask, is this the first time that you've done this in this particular way here?
If I can first add balance to the Kiksadis. I'm Siknachadi, come from Wrangell. I'm the wolf, eagle, moiety. We claim the brown bear and the killer whale crests.
I come from the red clay house. My father is Kiksepi from Sitka, the Point House. And it is important for us to have balance. And I am here out of love and respect for my father's people. And when we have something important to do in terms of support of our opposite clan, we do that whenever they ask us. And sometimes if they don't ask us, we offer if we can be of support. And during this 150-year Sesquicentennial, it ended up being a very important time, a mark in time that brought up the question and brought up the thought, brought up the feelings of not being included, not being considered, not being asked, not having any negotiation. And for 150 years, it has been simmering and it has been smoldering. We have to have an opportunity to talk about this in a peaceful manner, in a way that we can work toward healing. And I am just pleased to support my father's people in that manner. Sheesh.
And then just one final thing with this clan conference, I think that this is part of what has brought this up, is that we're talking about healing. And I was just talking with, Mary, about historical trauma. And I've been doing some research on our family, our lineages, and all of the epidemics and the Russians coming in and the federal policy that has affected us. And it's almost like, you know, it's just been one trauma after another for the last 200 years. And I feel like we're finally at a place now where we can finally be who we are without that shame, without having to consider others' feelings of guilt, and to come out and say, you know, this is our land. We've been here for 10,000 years, and that needs to be acknowledged because it hasn't been acknowledged. And I think this is the first year that people have actually, from the Alaska Day Committee, come forward and asked Tlingit people to be a part of. So, kind of sheesh for being here.
Is this the first time though that you've come and sang?
Yes,
all this
here.
time, this
Yes.
is the first time
Yes.
during the Alaska Day festivities. Wow. What do you think will come? I mean, what is your hope? You know, as far as like reconciliation and healing, what would be your hope for the next step?
Get our land back.
We would like Japonski, all of our summer houses where we gather our fish streams, our berries, our way of life. You know, and we, you know, laugh about it, but I think that there has been so little talk. There's been so little dialogue about really what did it mean to burn down the smokehouses. You know, I heard for the first time a story about the smokehouses, how some of them were burned for our fish camp, and what happened is that people, the federal government came in and said, your children have to be in school, because we stayed in fish camps until the fall. And they'd say, if you don't send your children to school, we're going to put you in jail. So they came into town. We came into town so we could, you know, not get arrested and have our children in the Western education. And then the Forest Service would go out and burn down the smokehouses. So it's been just like a catch-22 and one blow after another.
And speaking, I'm a newcomer, and speaking to some of the non-native folks, particularly on the plain, they seem to have pretty zero awareness that perhaps Tlinkits might have an opinion regarding, you know, maybe not be, perhaps they would have a differing opinion rather than not a celebratory attitude regarding Alaska Day. Is that fairly common?
I think there are a lot of Tlingit people who do celebrate it. I mean, it's really the biggest thing the town does every year. It's, you know, you compare our Alaska Day parade to our 4th of July parade, and it's quite a bit bigger, and it's done up quite big. And a lot of people do participate, and nothing to detract from that. Simply, there needs to be a notion, though, that we are celebrating every year, and those folks who do participate in the celebration, that we are basically then celebrating the day that our land was lost. And I think we're in a time right now where anytime any ethnic minority brings up anything having to do with generational or historical trauma, there's sort of a larger backlash against political correctness, and there's sort of a society at large right now that just wants to tell brown people of all shades of brown to just get over it and move on, and that we're all supposed to be grateful for the benefit of American civilization and everything it's brought us, with no dialogue as to whether or not the various groups, including Tlingit people, including all Alaska Native people, ever had any true time to adjust to the transition that was forced upon us, and that a lot of the social problems that we still have, that we're still combating, have to do with the fact that none of that was ever dealt with in any way that would help a Native people to adjust to something so vastly different. And so we have all of those problems with us still, and a lot of it probably has to do with the manner in which American civilization was thrust upon us.
And can I just add, it feels really good. It feels really good to have people here listening.
That was my
And
next
that our
question.
voices may be heard on our own land for the first time in many, many years. Gonna, sheesh.
Mary, to add to what Dion and Louise have said, in the 1990s, my father, John Hope, and my uncle Herb Hope were here at a convention, and we were talking about Alaska Day because it was right around the convention time, and I had made some comment about the castle that was up there, and they said, yeah, and we had our point house up there too. And that was in the 1990s. Since then, it had occurred to me in 2000 to have a possibility of a dialogue that would speak to the original ownership. And I think that's what would be an outcome of this, is just to begin respect, honor the first people. And that's what I was thinking of my father's people, is just begin the dialogue, just begin the respect that is due the first people.
Dion and Louise are the future of our Kiksati women and the Kiksati people in general. So through them, I stand in support with the words that they have to say, not adding or subtracting anything. If I say anything else, I might add, everywhere that you look right around here at the base of these mountains, in a 2-mile square, was the Russian capital of America. And if you aren't aware, the Tongass National Forest is some 17 million acres, and that's what we considered the territory of the Tlingit people. This was the first imprisonment of a European nation by a native group. And if you want to argue it against it, any of the times that they jumped over the fence, they were taunted, tormented, or killed. If you were to do the same thing out of a jail cell today, what happens? The same thing. So we maintained control of our resources by moving from here to the other sides. In a sharp contrast where they say we just gave our lands away, we redirected the resources where they needed to be. We remained allies with the people, our in-laws, so that we could maintain the strength of our words. And before we leave here, I think it's important, starting with Stella and Dion and all the people here that are Kiksati identity, to say your name proudly on the land, because we're still here. 2017. Your name is still alive through your ancestors, Yedi Kuka. If you know your name, you could say it. And I'd be
And
proud.
it's Yedi Kuka.
Ja, je taught us gain.
Oh, wait till you.
Achkadawat is named after a warrior from the battle that was out at the totem court.
Kuchan.
Yechanatsis. Datinaksa Slitzini Hashagun. There is nothing stronger than the words of our ancestors. And the names that you heard are still alive through these people. And like I'd said before, whatever these two ladies decide to do, I'm going to war with them. So be kind to them.
So Stella is holding the peace hat, and that came from Baranov, in actually the Russian American company. And what's her name?
Yechanatsis.
What Yechanesis was talking about, the embargo or the blocking of the trade, is probably what spurred them on to give this peace offering to the Kikseti, because they knew that they would not make any money as long as we were blockading the trade. And so this was gifted to the Kikseti people. At that time it was, the leader was Shkawish Yesh. So we bring this out as remembrance of who we are and that we belong here. We've been here for thousands of years. We're still here, and we hope to stay for another 10,000 or so.
To balance the peace hat, we brought our clan hat. This hat actually comes from a sorrow story. Our clan was upon hard times, and we had to leave our river, the Sesquicentennial, and we asked the Yun Yedi if they would protect our homeland, the river, and they did. And so this hat is in honor of that event, but it also represents those who have been on hard times, and there's others that come to help protect you and lift you up. That's what we're here for. That's what we're representing there. We're here to lift up the Kiksetis.
Sheesh.
We're going to do one of our sorrowing songs, and we've chosen to do Sesquicentennial because it is connected with our history with the Russians. The song was made by Sesquicentennial for the loss of her son Shkuye, but also one verse of it is dealing with the loss of her maternal uncles, who would have been the ones to comfort her with the loss of her son, but she lost her maternal uncles during the time of our last battle with the Russians in 1804, and so she was without them during her time of great loss. And so the song tells our history with the Russians as well. Sesquicentennial.
To balance out the sorrow song, I want to say first thank you to the Kikseti for sharing their sorrow song. We, in the sake of consideration of the weather, will say a few words in place of balancing with the song, the sorrow song. Anytime that we have an opportunity to lend support and hold hands with our Kikseti, we will do so. This is a time that we feel more than ever how important it is. With that, thank you very much. We stand with you. We stand with you.
Thank you for being here.
I can do it.
Yeah, my hair is cold.
Yeah.